The tariff battle rages on in the courts, with President Trump's administration set to ask our highest court, the Supremes, for an expedited ruling on the levies. Just last hour, the president issuing a warning if the Supreme Court rules against his tariffs.
Our country has a chance to be unbelievably rich again, but it can also be unbelievably poor again. If we don't win that case, our country is going to suffer so greatly.
What's the backup plan, sir?
But I think we're going to have a big victory.
Larry Kudlow.
Yes, ma'am.
Take the floor. How do you see it?
I'm totally with the president on this. I think the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., I mean, it's a Biden-esque and Obama-esque court. Although, interestingly, there was some dissents that I think will carry weight with the Supreme Court. But look, the basic part here is he chose IEEPA as an emergency, urgent way to deal with the trade breakdown that we've had. And he wants to move forward on this. You know, it's funny, I don't really see the problem here. It's like, okay, he's made these deals all across the world. Businesses are adjusting. The stock market has generally been very, very strong. The economy looks fine. As a side thing, as a byproduct, he's making a couple of $100 billion off the tariffs. It would be ridiculous to refund that and send it back. I don't know how the heck you do it, by the way. It would be one of the biggest, messiest, chaotic money exchanges in history. He's not taking the jurisdiction. It's not. I know that specifically Congress is in charge, has jurisdiction over tax cuts. I get that, okay? But these are not even permanent tariffs. These are negotiated tariffs to rebalance trade. That's a key point. He has the right, according to the legislation of I believe it was 1973, then amended in 77, something like that. He has the right, however, to regulate imports, and he also has the right and obligation to stop the drug trafficking. And maybe most of all, my take is he conducts foreign policy. He is the commander-in-chief, okay? And all of these trade negotiations with Japan, Korea, China, the European Union, India, you name it, these have important foreign policy implications. This is as much a foreign policy act as it is a measure to rebalance trade and stop the unfair practices around the world against the U.S. So I don't see what the problem is. I think the Supremes are going to say the same thing.
Are you arguing this in front of the Supreme Court? You could be quite good at that, Larry.
I've been honing my arguments. We had Jeff Garish on last night. He's a very smart fellow. But I talked to a lot of people about this, lawyers and non-lawyers alike. I'm sorry, look, it's the D.C. Court of Appeals, okay? We know a lot about the D.C. Court of Appeals. Trump has tangled with them before, and they lose. And they're going to lose again in the Supreme Court.
I don't want to open it up, but I want to raise this, though. The way the president talks about it, though, it doesn't sound like these are temporary levies.
Oh.
That he views it, and I'll tell you, like,
he said without them, the country is going to crumble and collapse.
As he loves the revenue. He has made that crystal.
Yeah, but you don't know. When I say temporary, the tariff rates will be temporary. We don't know, and he doesn't know. Look, he changes them, again, depending on foreign policy considerations, okay?
Like India.
Thank you.
Best example.
That's exactly the best example. 100%, Jackie. Actually, I would even add Canada to that. When Canada endorsed what the Palestinian state, he jacked that up. That's why I keep making the point. This whole tariff diplomacy, as I call it, is as much foreign policy as it is economic policy, but both are very important here. So I'm just saying, to your point, it could be 15%, could be 25 or 30%. That's different. You know, the Congress would lower the marginal tax rate. That's their jurisdiction, and that's permanent. Okay, permanent until it gets changed years later. But this is a much different game that Mr. Trump is playing. It's not like tax policy.
It's harder to make the foreign policy argument with like a Switzerland, though, isn't it? Like, I get it with India. Like, India, actually, I get it.
Or Canada, or Israel.
I don't know. Canada, you could argue about that, but there are definitely some countries in
And
there.
how
where it
about Russia?
seems-
We got a big Russia thing coming.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we're going to talk about it later or not. He's going to take action against Russia. He has lost his patience, as he should, with Russia. Now, how far he goes, tariffs are going to be part of the Russian, shall I say, solution. And that's foreign policy. And that's why these courts should stay the heck out. It's not their jurisdiction.
Years ago, Larry, I have to ask you, you wrote an essay, an op-ed, I think, called Taxes Are Tariffs.
Yes.
Excuse me, Tariffs Are Taxes.
Yes.
In 2018. Is that still the case? In the revenue that you talked about that the president is enjoying, isn't that revenue coming from American citizens and companies?
Well, by the way, I probably shouldn't say this, but I would remind that for businesses, for corporations who are tariffed, that is a deduction.
Americans.
That is correct.
Right.
So the so-called pain and suffering from the tariffs is ameliorated substantially because it is, in fact, it's cost of doing business, and you can deduct that, blah, blah, blah. But look, yeah, tariffs are taxes, but again, I'm saying none of this is permanent. And my argument here, and I wrote, when I was in office, I wrote 2 op-ed pieces preceding G7 and G20 meetings with the president's sign-off. He is a free trader. I've said this to this group. I've said he is a free trader. What he's saying is, though, I don't mean you, Jonathan, personally, but foreign competitors have been unfair. They keep us out of their market with high tariffs and particularly non-tariff barriers, which is the real game. And he's saying the only way I can knock that down is if the United States takes actions. We will not let them just sell into our market. We're the only game in town. You're going to have to pay more. And that is look, almost all these deals, as far as I know, barriers are coming down from our competitors. In other words, his plan is already working. There's even some evidence that imports are slowing and exports are improving. It's early in the game, it's only 6 or 7 months. But yeah, I think he's a free trader. This is the way you have to do it. Reciprocity has always been a brilliant idea. I am a free trader, Jonathan, I still am. But I support this action because this is a pro-American, we fight back action.
Did you ever, I think about this in terms of what does the next guy do? Okay, so IEEPA, we're using it now in this reciprocity fashion, that's what we call it. The next administration, not Donald Trump, not J.D. Vance, a left-winger. So they're going to get in sometime, okay? And they say, you know, all these polluters around the world, these CO2 emitters, that's a national emergency. It's killing the climate, and we're going to throw tariffs on all of their stuff coming in.
Yep.
You know, like we can't import any energy from Saudi Arabia because they're polluters, or like, you know. Israel, they're human rights abusers, and so we're going to put a huge tariff on Israel because they're. So I think IEEPA, if it's allowed to stand the way you're talking about, seems to me like the kind of tool that can be used by folks who I vehemently disagree with for policies that will wreck our country, and they'll say, well, my precedent is the Trump administration. Is there a way around that, Larry? That's what I'm asking.
Brian, you just have to have confidence in democracy.
In the left-wing president coming down the road? Because I don't.
No, in the democracy and the voters. You just have to have confidence that the voters
came
will
through
vote.
this time.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And, you know, we said this
There was a time before that, though.
all during 2023 and 2024 when they were using lawfare and weaponization and trying to throw Trump in jail for 750 years and take his businesses away. And I said time and time again, whatever courts may say, whatever special counsels may say, whatever the Justice Department may say, the real jury here is the November election.
American people.
And the American people will vote. And Brian, you know, you and I wouldn't like that use of IEPA. I agree with you about that. Okay, but you kind of have to. In a democracy, you take your chances. You put your best foot forward, and you know, shows like this, and you try
question
to
for you.
persuade people.
At top of the show, we were looking at the markets. Obviously, you've got a Dow that's down. Last time I checked, the Nasdaq and the S&P were up, so it's mixed today. Markets are not falling out of bet on this uncertainty.
Right. I know. Yeah, exactly. Including the bond market. I was reading yesterday bond rates, and I looked.
Yeah.
The worst the 10-year got was about 427, 428. It's fallen back down. That's the bond market. No, there's none of this. Let me just step back, though. You remind me of a point. Our friends at a certain very conservative editorial page, which is associated with this company, right at the beginning, have screamed at Donald Trump for any of these actions, okay? And they've argued, of course, the Smoot-Hawley argument, which was the worst thing ever in history. That was a 60% tariff, okay, which invited retaliation from all over the world and probably contributed enormously to the global depression. Okay, I buy that. But here's the thing. This time, there has been no retaliation. We had temporary retaliation from Canada, but they pulled back. We had temporary retaliation with China, but they pulled back. This time, it's deal making. Which is what the president said at the beginning. Deal making, okay? And that is so important. And the levels we're talking about the effective tariff, if we froze this in time right here now, is probably somewhere around 13 or 14%. It's not 60%. Now, is that higher than 2 to 3? Yes, absolutely. But then again, sometimes you use a carrot, sometimes you use a stick when you want to change the other team. But I'm just saying, this is not 1930s. We've had deals, not retaliation. There was never a global trade war. All these editorialists have been absolutely wrong. They won't admit it. They probably never will. I love all of them. They're dear friends of mine going back 40 to 50 years and the supply side revolution, and you may know who I'm talking about, but they've been wrong. I'm sorry. With all due respect and love, they've been wrong.
But I see people in this administration, including the Secretary of the Treasury, bragging over and over again about its $400 billion and climbing of how much money these tariffs are bringing in revenue. And when you sound like that, you're bragging and crowing about a tax. Whatever you're crowing about, revenue, and to think that the Democrats aren't paying attention to this new source of government revenue. So I'm not even talking about the court decision. They're paying attention because that's another way they can claw money away from businesses and individuals.
Well, that's why we should hurry up. And my view is I'd like to take those revenues, the bulk of them, and cut taxes. Just give it right back to the people.
Yeah, where's the money?
Right back to the people.
Where is that money?
Which money?
The money that they're bringing in through the tariffs. Like, I think if they could show the I know, but if they could.
Treasury Department.
I know, but they should show the American people.
The bureaucrats who run it.
Yeah.
I don't think they have an assistant secretary yet for that. But that's because Chuck Schumer won't let stuff go through. Francis Brooks is assistant secretary for trade. I don't know whether he would be. The money will sit in the Treasury's general account if you're asking a technical issue. But no, cut taxes. Trump said it again today. So he was asked a question, would this replace the income tax? And he said, well, we don't know, but something to look at. And America has a history of that sort of thing. I don't think it'll replace the income tax. What's the income tax? A couple $1 trillion.
Yes.
So we're not going to get there. But I'm not thrilled about building up, high tariffs to get revenues. Incidentally, the Laffer curve would kick in eventually. We won't buy anything. I don't want to go down that road.
Right.
But I don't think the president has. Dan Clifton does this all the time. Is such a smart fellow from Strategas Research, Washington Research. We're about 14% effective tariff rate. Geez, that's not bad, and that's temporary. If this Besson's going to keep negotiating, Lutnick's going to keep negotiating, et cetera, the president will keep negotiating. Here's where the foreign policy stuff comes in. Look, let's go to India. India did not join the axis of evil cabal, frankly, even though they flirted with them, and they've been bad players.
Some flirting there.
There was
some hand-holding,
right,
which I didn't
no
like.
Kissing on the mouth.
That's right.
So
That's
it was
right.
okay.
You're exactly right. Well put.
Yes.
Well put.
We're okay.
But I'm just saying that tariffs will play a role with U.S.-India relations. It did in the first term. I sat in all those meetings, and it will right now. But Dagan's right. We did. It was a little heavy petting there for a moment, but nothing worse. No, I didn't see any penetration or anything like that.
On that,
We gotta go.
I love Larry Kudlow so much for saying that.